I got into science fiction and fantasy, I think, the most honest way possible. I had a Radio Shack laptop computer when I was 13, and I started writing about portals, magic, gems, and dragons. I mean, it was basically a Tolkien ripoff. No, I think it was a Terry Brooks ripoff. So it was a ripoff of a ripoff, a couple of steps removed. And it was 600 pages, single spaced. It was the longest thing I've ever written. Unfortunately, it's been lost to the fog of time. But as I remembered, it was pretty epic. So yeah, I started writing young. I never stopped. I got a slightly better computer at some point because the Radio Shack Tascam or whatever was it was like a giant calculator with a screen this big. This is in the before times. And then I got a bigger screen, and that made me a better writer. And that's pretty much my relationship with fantasy and science fiction. There's just got to be more than that. I also went through a long spate of reading poetry and teaching literature, which probably didn't do me any favors because it just taught me words that people don't like. Lots of big words that you can't use. You just have to hold them like secrets in your heart.
What is up, everybody? You're listening to episode 71 of SFF Addicts. I'm your host, Adrian M. Gibson, and welcome to your weekly dive into the world of science fiction, fantasy, and writing craft. Joining me as always is my co-host, the Chewie to my Han Solo, the Joker to my Commander Shepard, MJ Kuhn. How's it going, MJ?
Hello, I'm doing lovely. How are you?
Doing very well, thank you. Very excited today. But before we get into things, I gotta show off Among Thieves. And Michael J. Sullivan critiqued me on how to properly hold a book. So here it is. It's by MJ Kuhn. Read it. It's fucking good. You're going to love it. And the sequel, Thick as Thieves, is also out. So go support MJ and her work. As well, a quick note for listeners, the official SFF Addicts Patreon and merch store are live. So check the links in the description to support what we do here. Also, don't forget to rate and review the podcast on your favorite podcast app. And subscribe to the FanFiAddict YouTube channel where this and every other episode of the show is available in full video. And now, welcoming today's guest, the one, the only, the enigmatic Josiah Bancroft, author of the Books of Babel series and the upcoming The Hexologists. Hello, Josiah. How are you on this fine day?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me on. I do have to ask, how are you holding the book? Are you holding it on top of your...
This. I think it was like...
Yeah.
It's by a mystery author.
It was by MJ from Spider-Man, or it was by J. Kuhn, or it was by MJ Un.
There you go. It could it could lend some more credence to the recommendation if they don't know it's my book, though, right? People would just oh wow, this guy just objectively likes this book. It's not like it's written by his friend or anything.
Yeah.
The mystery starts right then.
Exactly.
There you go.
I think you just palm it from behind, like a basketball.
I was just gonna say palm. Like a basketball. I don't think my hands are quite large enough to palm a book.
My hands are not that big. I cannot palm a hardcover. It doesn't work that way.
Embarrassing, Adrian. Embarrassing.
Shut the fuck up. Don't you dare talk about my hands. All right. Well, we are off to a good start. But for anyone who isn't familiar with Josiah and his work, tell us a bit about yourself, buddy.
I write fantasy. I like to play rock and roll. I used to draw comic books. I have a small child. I like to cook. I'm not very good at it. And other things. Is that enough? I can keep going.
That was a really nice dating app profile. I like it.
I am happily married. I should have led with that. Happily married.
Stay the fuck away, any of you single ladies.
We just celebrated our 22nd anniversary. 22nd? Oh, no. I've got to get the advocates out. 23? It was 23. 23rd anniversary.
23rd anniversary. Well, happy anniversary, you guys.
Time for another present.
No.
What anniversary is the 23rd?
It is an apology, and they go to a spa. Like, I'm just
Nice.
sorry that you don't get to be away from us anymore.
Yeah.
My gift to you is elsewhere with others.
And then 25 years is like, here's a bunch of silver. Just deal with it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Just doubloons at that point. Sorry.
Here's a chest. Here's
It's a
chest.
pirate marriage. I love it.
Yeah.
If anyone's marriage is a pirate marriage, it's yours, Josiah.
Well, we do like
Sky
shanties.
pirate marriage.
Yes.
You do
Yes.
shanties.
There's lots of singing and doing this. Yeah.
As any good marriage has.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Exactly.
Well, let's dive in more into like your relationship with science fiction and fantasy, because I feel like we've gotten to know a little bit about you. We've gotten some color into your everyday
Yes.
life with your
Balloons,
cooking that
shanties.
you enjoy, but maybe aren't great at. But
Nope.
what's your relationship with reading nerdy stuff? Like, how did you get into science fiction and fantasy?
I got into science fiction and fantasy, I think, the most honest way possible. I had a Radio Shack laptop computer when I was 13, and I started writing about portals, magic, gems, and dragons. You know, I mean, it was basically a Tolkien ripoff. No, I think it was a Terry Brooks ripoff. So it was a ripoff of a ripoff, a couple steps removed. And it was 600 pages. Single spaced. It was the longest thing I've ever written.
Oh my God.
He writes very long books.
Oh, it was fantastic. Unfortunately, It's been lost to the fog of time. But as I remembered, it was pretty epic. So yeah, I started like writing young. I never stopped. I got a slightly better computer at some point because the Radio Shack Tascam or whatever was it, it was like a giant calculator with a screen this big. This is in the before times. And then I got a bigger screen, and that made me a better writer. And that's pretty much my relationship with fantasy and science fiction. There's just got to be more than that. I also went through a long spate of reading poetry and teaching literature, which probably didn't do me any favors because it just taught me words that people don't like. Lots of big words that you can't use. You just have to hold them like secrets in your heart. And then I started to write fantasy again as a midlife crisis when I was about 35. Oh, that was 10 years ago. I'm revealing, like, oh, no, I'm old man. Yeah. So I started writing fantasy again just to kind of like, rediscover joy. And I did. And that's what Books of Babel are. It's me rediscovering joy and making some readers angry. So, yeah.
I feel like I discovered joy.
I will say,
too. Yeah.
I will say, though, you do like to throw in the odd, I don't know what the fuck this is word.
Just gonna ask you though, what's your favorite word that you hold like a secret in your heart?
It would be shivelight, which describes the quality of light as it filters through beautiful green trees and foliage, like a canopy of leaves, which is beautiful. I mean, it's
beautiful.
Yeah. And that word was taught to me in the last like 3 months by somebody on my Patreon, and I was like, "That's incredible, thank you." And see, that's the right response. When you learn a new word, you say, thank you. You've broadened my life. You've increased my pleasure of the world. Not all this like kicking rocks and being grumpy. New words are good. Yeah.
I feel like you've encountered a lot of people grumpy when you talk.
I do make people grumpy. When I was back, I was a community college teacher. They called me the robot because they thought I talked like with too much, vocabulary or whatever. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's okay. When I was a kid, Josiah, my cousins used to make me run a lap around the cabin every time I used a word that nobody else knew what it meant. So
you're physically fit.
I am. Yes, I'm a fellow big word lover.
Yeah. Well, what's your favorite word right now? I mean, I know that's a big question, but just for the day.
Oh my gosh, don't put me on the spot. I can't think of a single big word now. All the words I can think of are like 4 letters long now. Oh, that makes it sound like I can just think of swear words right now.
Oh, yeah.
MJ's favorite word is fuck.
I mean, to be fair, it is such a satisfying word. I do love the word fuck.
Yeah.
I do love the word
flabbergasted. Flabbergasted is just like, it
flabbergasted is. And then there was a TikToker I saw that said, my gasts have been flabbered, and now I can't stop saying that.
I like that.
That's amazing. That's very good.
Good stuff. It almost sounds like ghosts are involved, and I'm really on board with that.
Ghosts are always flabbergasted. Oh my gosh. Okay, I need to get us back on track here.
Bring it in. Reel it in.
Let's reel it in. No. I want to go deeper to see. I mean, there's got... Adrian, what's your favorite word?
Yeah.
I just
and you can't say. Oh, is it flabbergasted? I thought that was her. So you're flabbergasted.
No, that was
no, I stole it.
Okay,
I just bandwagon jumped.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
It's flabbers.
Okay, that's great.
That sounds dirty.
Dirty ghosts. You dirty ghosts.
So Josiah, can you tell us about the origins of the Books of Babel, Sunland Ascends, that whole series? Where did it start? It sounds like, was that the first thing you wrote when you turned, you're 35 and decided to rediscover joy? Tell us all about that.
Well, I went to the desert and I did a lot of peyote, and that's where it all began. I was reading a lot of sort of Victorian novelists for my youth, so I was trying to figure out what I was missing in my life. So I started reading Jules Verne and H.G. Wells. And it struck me that while there were some really fun ideas, and I still enjoyed the adventuresome and inventive qualities of those works, they were problematic in some areas. So it was sort of shocking. Like my 12-year-old brain was like, I guess that's just how we talk about minorities and women. But then as a mid-30s, I was like, oh, this is terrible. And so I was reading that, and then I was also reading Italo Calvino and his Invisible Cities, and exploring his Cosmocomics and all of his sort of amazing absurdist literature. And I wanted to smash those two things together. At first, I thought it was going to be sort of a travel log of the Tower of Babel, which, I had this fuzzy idea about. Maybe a prose poem. For a while, I was like, this could be poetry still, because I was writing poetry at the time, like an idiot. And I tried all of that for a couple of weeks, and I was like, I'm still miserable. Why? So then I just gave up on poetry, and I gave up on literature, and I just started writing fantasy. And so the Books of Babel kind of came out of this Whitman-esque yelp, frustration, and a desire to feel something different. And so, I just started writing. I had a 2-page outline for the Books of Babel that would encompass, at the beginning, I thought 7 volumes. A 2-page outline is probably not sufficient for 7 volumes, and I only wrote 4. But the gist of it was there. Yeah. I had a premise, and then I just started to play. And so one of the things that kind of distinguishes the Books of Babel is there's 3 sections per book, and every section is sort of different, ostensibly because I go to a different ringdom or a different sort of arena, but actually because I got bored and wanted to try something new, a different genre or a different sort of take or a different point of view. It was a wonderful experiment. I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I escaped the tower. I'm sorry I left some bodies there.
Sorry to anyone who read it and didn't survive. Shit happens.
Shit happens.
I mean, if you survive a book, is it any good?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You gotta be devastated. You gotta be, you gotta have your heart ripped out a little bit.
Part of you has to die. Wow, that's dark.
Exactly.
That's so much better. That's so much better. Let's put it that way. You don't actually literally have to die.
No, just a part of your soul.
Caused organ failure. Nope, that's not what you want. You just want to have them kind of feel something. That's better as an editor and a publisher.
Just a hint of organ failure with every Bancroft book.
That's right.
It's what we all want. What was it that made you decide to enter the book into SPFBO? Because at the beginning it was self-published. For anyone who didn't know,
right?
It's very interesting.
Yes, because I didn't know what I was doing. I can't emphasize that enough. I was a middle-aged dum-dum. I'm now a slightly older middle-aged dum-dum. But then I was particularly idealistic, and I thought, hey, if you self-publish it, somebody will discover it. Surely, that's how it works. If you just put yourself out there. If you play your guitar on the street corner, Ed Sheeran style, eventually someone will walk past and say, hey, you're pretty good. Self-published it, and I entered it into the SPFBO, which was The Last Gasp. I had written at that point the sequel to Sunland Ascends, Arm the Sphinx. I think I had sold a couple hundred Sunland Ascends. I sold, I think, a couple dozen Arm the Sphinx. I entered Sunland Ascends into that contest, hoping that maybe something would happen. And before I heard back, I deleted all my social media, deleted all of my web presence, all of my effort, and I moved on to other things because I considered that to be a robust failure. And you know what? I will fail on one book. I'll fail on 2 books, but I won't fail on the third. No, I was like, that's too far. That's right. I drew the line in the sand. And so, then a miracle happened. I got bumped out of the contest almost immediately by my now very good friend, Phil Tucker, and his wonderful book, Path of Flames. And but for some reason, Porno Kitsch was the reviewer. He wrote this great article. Mark Lawrence saw it. He decided to read Sin on the Sins, I guess, out of pity. He liked it, again, for some reason. I can't quite articulate. And then he passed it on to his agent, and his agent came to me and said, "Hey, let's make this happen, me and you." And I said, "Ed Sheeran?" And he said, no, stop saying that. I was just, sort of like how it went. Yeah.
Just without Ed Sheeran.
Yeah, there was no Ed Sheeran. Yeah. And then when I gave it to the agent, when the agent saw it, his first comment was, "All right, this is okay. Let's write something else. Let's write something people would want to read. Let's write something friendly and personable, sellable, marketable." And I said, nah. Let's write that 3rd book no one wanted. And he said,
4th one.
Okay. Here we are.
And let's make them longer with each installment.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And there's Josiah in the background just saying like organs.
Oh, the body count rises.
Oh, it rises. Love it. And so after all of that, how did that self-pub SPFBO experience affect your perceptions of publishing and the realities of being an author, since you went through that up and down of being like, well, shit, 2 books didn't go so well.
Yeah.
I'm going to bow out.
Right.
And then coming back into it. And how did all that feed into your idea of like, well, is this actually going to be a thing?
I just love that I had an excuse to write more, and it was helpful to get paid for it because I could stop like dancing at the circus, which was getting old. So yeah, I appreciated that, but I mean, God, it's weird. I think like I was very accustomed to disappointing myself, but having the opportunity to disappoint everyone else was just a new high and a new low that I went through, and I learned a lot. I learned that you shouldn't be on Twitter. Just generally, don't be on Twitter. Goodreads
is X now.
It's called X. That's right. You shouldn't be on Goodreads if you're an author, and you have to still, even if you publish, you have to write for yourself, because ultimately, if you don't like it, then you've wasted your time, and if you do like it, then it had a meaning. So yeah, I mean, I think that's why I mostly learned from publishing. Get advances. Don't do handshake deals. I mean, that's yeah. I'm not really like good like talking about the industry, because I think that like everything I've done has been non-standard and just based off of bald luck. And so whenever anyone asks me like what they should do, I always think like be lucky. I mean, I don't. Because I still meet people who show me their work. I'm like, oh my God, this is incredible. This is so much better than anything I write. They should carve this on walls. And they're like, I can't get any better to my phone calls. So it's arbitrary. That's what it is.
No, but I think it is useful in the sense that there are so many ways to get into this industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That even the ways that seem sort of stumbling, like yours, are still helpful.
Beg your pardon. Stumbling?
You stumbled, buddy.
No.
And we are forever grateful that you did, because we got all the 4 books in the series. But like, no, I totally get it. In any like path to publication or whatever, there's an element of luck for everybody, right? Mm-hmm. Like, even if you grind through the query trenches and to get your agent, like, you still happen to catch the right agent on the right day when they're in the right mood and they've had their cup of coffee when they read your query letter, right? Like, there's an element of luck no matter what. So don't shortchange yourself. my dude.
I appreciate that. And I have met people who have been luckier than me. I was talking to a writer not long ago, and I asked her like how she got discovered. And she said, well, I just put my MFA thesis on my website, and somehow an agent found it, and then they published it. And I said, that doesn't happen. That's not a thing. You're a lying lizard from a different planet. Like, that's just impossible. But look, it did happen. That's just how it is sometimes. Like, the most unlikely thing can happen. And then you can do everything right, write all the letters, go to all the seminars, and you don't catch the falling star.
Yeah.
Yeah, very true. No, it's just like after all the conversations we've had with authors, MJ, I feel like I'm kind of entering into the debut author space very soon, and just because of this podcast, it has opened my eyes to the realities of how much of a crapshoot it all is.
Yeah.
In terms of, even in self-publishing, even in traditional publishing, people who go hybrid, there's so many different opportunities where it's like you can hit the ground running somehow and really take off. You can just write the perfect kind of genre capturing book at the right moment where people are like, I really love dragons, Ryan Cahill. And then, just find a lot of success there. But then you could also write an amazing book, like you said, Josiah, and agents aren't returning emails, or, if it's a self-pub thing, then people just aren't reading it. And it's like, man, this whole thing is a fucked up whirlwind. But at the very least, when it comes down to it, I feel like, as you said, just writing for yourself is kind of the thing that
you're going to read the book more times than anyone else, so you better like it.
That's right. Yeah. I think that's the mindset you have to have, because otherwise you take all this rejection personally. You're like, oh, I guess I'm actually not very good. And that's a devastating place to be after stealing all this time from your family and friends, like things you could have done instead. And you were working on this crazy thing, this cobbled together dream that like spans a year or more of work. And to think like, oh, that was for nothing and no one is devastating. But if you can like understand, like, publishing is not about the quality of the work. It does not. We have all, I think it's fair to say, read some terrible books that have been published. And so it's not about quality. It's
New York Times bestsellers that are just not necessarily like, wow, this is just like a dumpster fire, but it's mediocre.
It's like a trash can fire.
Yeah, not a dumpster. It's a more contained, self-contained, smaller.
Yeah.
I like that. It's not a dumpster fire, just a trash can, or like a bathroom like trash
yes,
can.
exactly.
Even littler. There we go. It's almost cute in terms of fires.
You're a cute little trash can.
Cute little trash can fire. Well, to return to writing what we love, are there moments when you miss Senlin and the gang, or are you content to have left them where they're at and excited, or just like purely just excited to be moving on to other stories? Like, where are you in that realm?
I do miss them, and I have actually dipped back in occasionally just because I have this, these ideas or scenes or little vignettes that I want to pursue. And so, I mean, I have stuck a toe in now and again because, I mean, I spend so much time with them. Of course, I'm fond of them. Of course, they're still rattling around in there. It is hard to let go. I mean, it is hard to let go. One of the things that I did realize is that there is, when you have fully fleshed out characters that you have spent so much time with, there's a lot of liberty there, but there's also constriction. There's constraints. And the constraints is that there are some things they would never do. There are some adventures they would never go on. There's some questions they would never ask. And so as much as I love those characters, it was time to move on for me. Will I ever return? Like I said, I do occasionally. And I might in some more earnest, sustained format. That's real vague. I like that. I'm going to do a concept album called, no, I'm not going to do a concept album. It's on the table. But yeah, I might return.
I would like a concept album. That'd be really nice.
Okay, so I can only play bass and ukulele. So, I mean, it's going to be pretty.
Okay.
Sounds like a very interesting concept album.
Yeah.
I'm down.
Okay.
My 6-month-old is like a wizard at the xylophone, so I can get him.
Oh, there you go. Now we're building the band. Man. Let's do it.
Yeah. My brother-in-law, he sings metal music, so I can get him on board too. I think we're set, man. We're good.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, so
ukulele, xylophone, bass, and metal sing. Yeah.
So now we're missing a key component. If you don't have a drummer, you don't have a band. So MJ, so what's the rhythm like over here?
I actually used to be on the drum line in high school, so
Ooh,
nice.
There we go.
So there we go.
Jokey.
I'm a little rusty, but let's dust it off for this.
The band is together.
Strange concept album.
Yeah.
Okay, like drum line, like the big bass, or like the snare. What are we doing?
Tenor drums. So the 4.
No kidding.
Oh,
yeah.
Nice.
This is a done deal.
You got the neck movements down. You're just like, you're just jiving. I love it.
I love it.
I was vibing.
Yeah, we just call up Nicholas Eames, be like, bitch, the boys are back in town. Let's do this. I love it, man. All right, Josiah, I'm going to call you on some shit for a second.
Okay.
Real talk, man. You told me a couple years back you didn't want to write any more series, but here we are, Bancroft. Here we are. Orbit offered you a hefty sum, and now you've got a new series that starts with the Hexologists. So tell us more about this book and its beginnings.
See, it's funny when I said I wouldn't sell out. It was before I heard the figure. And then I was like, oh yes.
That's like I was underinformed. I'll sell out for that.
Yeah, sure.
You know, it was partly that. It was partly that when I went into it, I was insistent. I was like, this is not going to be a series. And I said that and I keep saying it to everyone who listen to me. These are standalone episodic adventures in the realm of Indiana Jones.
Sherlock Holmes.
Yes, Sherlock Holmes. Agatha Christie's Poirot. These are standalone little adventures that somebody can dip in and out of. There is no big bad, no giant arc, no reveal that's going to require a 4-book investment. My goal was to write breezy, fun, vocabulary challenging, standalone adventures. So that's what I did. I keep saying breezy, and then people are like, "Let me show you this word that I've never heard before." I'm sorry, I don't.
Breezy for Josiah.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah,
I like it though. I will accept you selling out for that, just because you made the caveat with Orbit to say this is not a continuing series, an overarching series. Okay.
Well,
so that's kind of it's a little bit of a gray zone.
It's kind of fun. It's like a series of standalones, which gives you so much freedom to play. Yeah.
That's exactly right. I'm not a liar. I'm just not very honest.
I'm just a truth bender.
I'm a truth bender.
It was like an airbender, a firebender, a truth bender.
Yes, I like that. It's perfect.
There's a 5th element.
There is. Truth.
Truth and lies.
I wonder how many writers say when they get to the end of a long running series say the same thing. Not only do I think I'm not really a big liar, I think I'm probably in great company, if we want to do a poll.
Yeah, well, I would imagine too, once you get used to telling a story with such a large arc, it would be really hard to try to condense or write, you know what I mean? Not want to make it sprawling and huge and keep exploring the world. But yeah.
That's why Brandon Sanderson's I'm going to get other people to get into this Cosmere and write some shit.
Right?
Smart.
Everybody. Come on in.
It's just outsource, man. That's what it's all about.
I love it. He's thinking it's the future. But yeah, so we'll dig deeper into the mystery elements of the Hexologists in our next episode. Spoiler for what's going on there. But I want to dig more into our main characters, Iz and Warren. How did this wonderful duo come to be? And then I'm curious if your world came first, your characters came first, what came to you first? What was that first little seed for this story?
Okay, so let me do the world thing first because it goes with the character side thing. So I sat down one day and I was really fed up with everything I'd been writing, and I was tired of revisions. I was tired of the Books of Babel, and I just started writing the start of a story from the creation of a planet. I decided to go back to the very beginning. I started with a planet being created, gods fighting, the emergence of humanity, the meddling of gods, development of societies, the emergence of technology and industry. And I did all of this like very tongue-in-cheek and just being very silly, very playful. I had a lot of fun. Like I was just like throwing every idea I could at the wall. And I was just enjoying myself. And I did that for like 3 or 4 days. And it was just so delightful. And then I sat back and I was like, this is garbage. I haven't shown it to anyone. I show everything to my wife. I was like, no, this is fun, but I can't. So I had a lot of like just fun confetti, but I didn't have a point, and I didn't really have a point of entrance. And so that's when Isolde Wilby emerged. That's where she like sort of inserted herself into the process, and I started writing from her point of view. And so then things began to really cohese. Like, before it had just been playful, and she introduced some order to it. She marshaled some of the ideas into some like more coherent histories. And so then the systems of magic emerged, and then I got a sense of what the world would really be like. And so, it began as sort of a lark. It began as a writing exercise that was done out of frustration. And so much of like my inspirative moments come out of just frustration. I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. And so I write something else crazy. And then I'm like, well, it's not that crazy. But I the same way that the Books of Babel needed Thomas Sinlin to be a lens into the tower, I needed Isolde Wilby to be a lens into the sort of hexologist world. And so once I had her, I was ready to go. I kind of had this very clear idea that she was going to be a prickly sort of literal, not misanthropic, but certainly disenchanted sort of character. But I really wanted to have a functional marriage in this book. I wanted to have a happy couple. It was like one of those, like when I was suffering through certain revisions of certain books, I was like, next book, right? Happy couple. Happy couple. Like they like each other.
Underline happy.
They communicate. They talk about their feelings. They do it. Like all these things that I wanted to have them be.
I was like, after reading the book, I was like, they're like Sherlock and Watson, but if they fucked,
yes,
and had a good, like a good, healthy dynamic and complemented each other's
personalities. So that's exact. If I could have pitched that to my agent, I would have. But I actually said that to my wife Sharon, and she's like, "That's pretty funny, but don't say that." So, okay, all right, I won't say that.
Yeah. We'll say it.
You can say it. Say it all.
We'll say it for you.
Yeah.
Explicit
podcast.
And then there was just like, did you guys ever see like the Fargo movie from way back when?
Ooh,
the Coen Brothers Fargo movie.
Yeah.
Okay, the original one. There's the police detective and her husband, who's like the house husband, and there are these great scenes where she's talking about her sort of like frustration with the case or with the witnesses, and he's just like listening and supportive. And there's this one of my favorite scenes is when like they're interrupted at home and he's baking in the kitchen and he's wearing an apron and nothing else. And I was like, that's the touchstone. Just this like real and wholesome. Maybe not wholesome is not the word for it, but you know what I mean. Like
definitely wholesome.
It is wholesome though. It's wholesome intimacy. Yeah. I did love the positive relationship dynamics and the like. I mean, it sounds silly to call it like sex positive because they're married and stuff, but like you don't see that on the page where it's not like spicy and tawdry and whatever. No. It's just literally like it's just showing a happy marriage that is happy in all of the elements, and I loved that.
It's like, hey, we're in a royal carriage. What's on your mind?
What do you do?
Yeah.
So that was sort of like the trajectory of how the story came together, and then I'm like, I guess I have to write a mystery, and that was like the third thing.
So would you say that Isolde is and always will be the glue that held this world together?
Yes, I would. Yeah, I like it.
All right.
Yes, I would.
You witty son of a gun. Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, those characters for me, we talked to Krithika H. Rao recently, and she has a married couple in her debut novel, The Surviving Sky. And it's kind of interesting to have the duality in my head of these books that I've recently read with the Hexologists, where there's a married couple who are healthy and communicative, and then in Krithika's where there's a married couple who are kind of destructive and
non-communicative.
Non-communicative.
Yeah.
And so it's like this really, really interesting contrast, but I love the fact that it's like, you know, we're getting older. We're getting married and stuff.
Yeah. Well, I just love seeing
kids.
those very real world dynamics, relationship dynamics explored in the lens of fantasy. Like I'm loving that. Maybe I just haven't been picking up the right books. I haven't really seen it other than, yours, The Hexologist, and then The Surviving Sky recently. I guess Kings of the Wild.
Probably
right?
outside of science fiction. Probably outside of science fiction and fantasy, there's a lot more.
Oh, no, for sure. 100%. But like
within sci-fi and
fantasy, I don't read anything outside of science fiction and fantasy, man.
Loser. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm sorry, I get enough of like reality in reality. I'm trying to see some dragons and shit, okay?
You pedestrian.
Yeah. But no, it's great. I love that. I love having those dynamics in fantasy, and it's
I completely agree that like there's a lot more that could be done with exploring relationships in the genre, and I'm excited to see more people do it. And I think it's going to be like cozy is going to be the big thing, but I think there's also room for couples and just relationships, even like familial, like sisters and brothers and sisters and sisters, so all mothers and everything. Like there's just a lot of room for exploring all the rich pageantry of relationships that I think
it's
the
not
genre's ready for.
brand new head over heels were puppy love, which is I feel like what a lot of fiction focuses on. Yeah.
I'm never going to write a YA puppy love story.
See, you're on record saying that now, and you said you weren't going to write another series, Josiah.
He's just gonna bend the truth.
Yeah, right.
In a way that
unless I get a really good book deal for it.
It's not going to be about wizards.
No.
Nothing like that. No. None of that shit. All right. Well, you touched on the I really love how you just kind of went down a rabbit hole of creating this like the entire history of this planet before you came to the Hexologists. But the time frame that you seem to have landed on, where from my perspective it comes across as very much inspired by turn of the 20th century industrializing England, rife with new technologies and a dubious royal family and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But then on top of that, you have the various forms of magic and magical creatures. So when you were going into that process of like, okay, I've got Isolde and I've got some better grasp of what this world is going to be and what the story is going to be, what went into sort of fleshing out the world some more, and how did the social historical commentary meld together with the fantastical elements?
Well, that's an easy two-parter. Okay, well, so I'll start with the first one. So I think that like any normal person, when I start to like fill out a world, I think about architecture. And so I was like, I want the architecture of this world to be sort of inspired by Art Deco. And I want the sort of cultural milieu to be like a jazz age, like dawn of jazz. And so, there's these touchstones that were important to me in architecture and art and music that I then put through the, confabulator where you sort of like, oh, I'm going to make this like sort of familiar, but not exactly. Like the cars have 6 wheels. Isn't that different enough? We'll say this. The radios are called Highlines.
You silly man.
Yeah, you have to like make a little translation, but like that's obviously what I'm pulling from. Like, yeah, the kind of the post-industrial boom, but like when things are sort of on the upswing and there's lots of excitement about technology, but at the same time there's the sinister sort of miasma of pollution and all that stuff that's very much present and inescapable. And so the cost of these innovations, as beautiful as they are, is also like in evidence, I guess.
And what's your problem with the Royals, huh?
Well, they're great. I just think they're wonderful. I don't
just
have
peachy.
I guess like I've always found them mysterious, like just as a cultural concept because of my upbringing or whatever. And then like there was a period of time in high school when I was living in Europe, and there was this pronounced interest in the royal family, and I just found it completely baffling. Like it was just on the front cover of all these newspapers and rags, and I tried to kind of like get the gist, but it was so deep. It was like a soap opera that had been going on for 500 years, and if you didn't understand it, people were angry with you. And so I just sort of felt a little resentful after a while. And I think that's where my dislike of the Royals come from. That's not fair to them because I think they're good.
It's like the judgment that you received sort of begetted judgment for yourself, and it's just like fuck you for judging me, I'm gonna judge you, and
I'll judge you right back.
Judge you right back, man.
Everything that I do is pretty much just a trickle down from being bullied in high school. You know, I'm just like leveling the score here. That's
true
all
for
I'm
all
doing.
of us, my friend. I think
that's right.
Yeah. It was really funny though, reading the book, and then like there was just like one little offhanded comment. No spoilers, of course, but someone how they kind of used someone who had gathered decades of newspaper clippings about the royal family as a way to further the investigation. I was like, I've met people like that, and it's really scary. My mom is obsessed with the royal family. I'm like, you're Canadian, who gives a shit? It doesn't matter to us anymore. And going to England, like my brother lives in England now, and to see, you know, the way that the celebrations are treated and everything. My brother got married the day after the royal, or who was it? Like Prince William and Kate, whatever. I think it's William and Kate.
I call them Billy and K-Town, but whatever you want to call them.
Billy and Kate. No, Billy and
you
K-Town
guys are tight though, so it's, you know.
Yeah,
we are.
Billy and K-Town. My brother got married the day after them, and it was just a whole fucking hullabaloo of like, we got married like the day after the royal couple and blah blah blah. And I'm like, who gives a shit? You know,
a lot of people do.
A lot of people do, but...
and to those people, I say, I care as well.
I like it. You know how to sit on that fence. But so you played with the trope of like the royal family thing. I'm curious, what were some of the other, like, did you have any other enjoyable things to like satirize, or some tropes that you got to mess with and stuff throughout writing this?
Oh yeah, I really wanted to do. And this is just an evidence in the Books of Babel as well. I love reporters. I love like fast talking, smarmy, like a little like problematic reporters as characters generally. And so I wanted to do another one of those. And so I did, and I had a lot of fun. I wanted to have a librarian that shot at patrons who are noisy. Like I kind of just like at some point I wrote in a notebook like librarian who can shoot back, and then I decided to put one in. You know, I love librarians so much. Like the role they play.
They need more like spitball defense mechanisms.
Yes, they do. Yeah, and these are not like fatal like. You know,
no.
This is just a blow dart with like wax tips. And,
organ failure.
Yeah,
possible.
Yeah. Well, if you give them the eye, that's an organ failure. That's, but yeah, so yeah, that was fun. I definitely wanted to do a dragon because when I was 13, I got into the whole genre because of dragons. My first dragon was called Morto Angus because I had a Latin dictionary and Morto was dead and Angus was fire. It's not really, don't look it up. But I wasn't good at reading.
So cool, Josiah.
I know.
Was that in your 600-page single line?
Yes,
epic?
I was doing this when I was 13 because I've always been a dork.
I love it. The best people are.
Come by it honestly. So with a new one, I spent a lot of time like laboring over the name because I feel like that's important. And when I was doing some reading, I came across like the scientific term for the catbird, which is like, I mean, I was like, oh, this is going to be like a lovely name. And the second part of it was Felivox. Like, oh, that's a dragon name. Felivox, you got to use that. 100%. And the first part is Tertus. Tertus Felivox. And I was like, oh, I'm going to use both of these. So, you know, so it's just, I love that sort of Latin stuff. Anyway, so yeah, there's a dragon. There's a librarian that has a blowgun. and there's a fast-talking reporter who is a bit of a pill.
I love
Dude,
it.
I love
Honestly, like if that was the whole pitch for this book, I would still have wanted to read it. Like,
wait. Sherlock and Holmes fucking,
yeah.
a healthy relationship,
a dragon, fast-talking reporter, and blow dart wielding librarians. I love it.
Yeah.
10 out of 10.
Okay,
I'm here for it. I'm in.
Come on, Orbit.
I mean, I already read
it. But Well, speaking of Filivox, quick fun question. If you could have your own version of the Portmanteau, what would be inside?
Ooh, that's a good question. There's this, one of the things there's something I think called the Stare of Ancients. So it was like a broken jade mask that allowed you to see the world as it was, but only like long-standing structures, like signs and buildings and, bridges and stuff like that. And as a kind of dork for architecture, I would love to have something that you'd hold up like a viewmaster, and just look out over a landscape and see all the buildings that were, all the structures that have collapsed. That to me, like, sometimes I just write things like, ooh, I like that. Like, can you imagine, like, you hold it up and you just see, like, an old palace that's been gone for a couple thousand years. That sounds like fun to me.
You can just, like, click through the years and see, like, what's changed
Ooh,
here.
like one of those,
Like
those
a viewfinder.
I love it.
Things. Yeah.
Oh, my God,
Whatever,
dude, that would be so cool.
Very cool.
MJ's got her shit together.
Do I, though? Do I ever?
You do.
Speaking of having our shit together, looking ahead, what's next for you? Oh, look at that transition, Adrian.
Segue.
Nailed it.
Yep.
But no, what's next for you, Josiah? I'm assuming.
Oh, for me? Oh, God.
In the Hexologist?
I'm working on the sequel to the Hexologist now. I'm having a lot of fun with it. I wanted to play with, like, some deranged botanists, because I think we all, like, want to see more of those. There's going to be some explosions, because I didn't feel like the first one had enough of those. We get to see more of, like, Isolde's past with the police department when she was a captain of a short-lived head of the Ensorcelled Investigations Office. So this is going to kind of delve into that a little bit. I always like the police procedural, so I'm not trying to horn in on your territory, Adrian. I know you got it locked down. You are the police procedural god, but I was going to do a little dippy-roo into that.
Dipping your toes.
Yeah. So I'm having a lot of fun. I'm still, I'm like 120 pages into it, early days, but, I have a 40-page outline that I have not looked at in 2 months, because
I've done that too.
Yeah.
I do that all the time, because I feel like the outline sometimes it's like just getting your own juices flowing and getting your brain going in the right direction.
It's also getting rid of some of the bad ideas.
Yeah, I was going to say, and then because I all the time will go back and look at my old outlines and be like, "Oh, a lot of that didn't make it."
Yeah. I had this idea that I wanted Warren. He has all this like wild past experiences. Like he was a strongman in the circus, and then I had this idea that he was probably a professional wrestler at some point. And so I had this entire storyline written with him and revisiting his professional wrestling past. And I can't figure out where to shoehorn it into the story, but I'm going to.
Josiah, I got one of my favorite podcasts of all time is called Our Fake History by a fellow Canadian named Sebastian Major, which is just the most podcast worthy name ever.
Yeah.
But he was an English teacher in Ontario, but he has a 3-episode series on wrestling, just specifically wrestling, and I'm going to send it to you, and I know you're going to love it.
Please
and
do.
I know you're going to enjoy this podcast in general, because it's all kinds of quirky shit.
I love that. Thank you.
From across history.
Yes.
So I'm gonna send that to you.
Awesome.
All right, buddy. Well, to close out, I got 2 requests. If you could give listeners and viewers A good bit of soundbite writing advice, and B, tell us a weird or random fact that you find to be utterly fascinating.
Okay. So my writing advice would be, when you get stuck, stop doing that thing and try something physically different. Don't just go for a walk. Try something different with how you're writing the piece itself. If you write on paper, try writing on a typewriter. If you do that, do a word processor. Find a different way to engage the medium, and also go for a walk. So I said this because I the last 2 books owe so much of their inventiveness to handwritten notes that I couldn't do on the word processor anymore. And once you kind of like find whatever your thing is, I know some people do not like writing by hand. That's totally like understandable. Maybe you're like somebody who is a dictator. I don't mean like you're not a dictator. You're probably a nice person, but you enjoy dictation.
They're a fan of voice recording apps.
Yes, right. We're not getting to fascism here, but yes, voice recording apps. Find the thing that helps you get out of the sort of the rut of the medium itself, which I think is pretty common to encounter. And what was the second question?
A weird or
what's your favorite animal?
You find to be utterly fascinating.
Oh, okay.
Or what's your favorite animal?
Yeah, what's your favorite animal?
Weird or random fact you find utterly. So the weird or random fact that I find completely baffling is that the idea that the black hole, as it devours everything, loses no information, and everything it consumes is converted to sort of a two-dimensional reel of stuff, of information, which, because information cannot be lost or I'm muddling this, but this idea that black holes are sort of like cosmic tape recorders, and I know that's not accurate. I don't care, but it's close enough. That these black holes are not only just violent destroyers, but they're also the universe's archivists. I will take no questions.
I love it.
Yeah, I had an idea once. It was like the archivist at the end of the universe was just like the sentence that I wrote down, but then I just did nothing else with it. But I really like that.
If you can run with that. That's not bad. I like that.
Yeah.
I feel like the black hole being an archivist of the things it destroys also kind of makes it like the Reapers from Mass Effect. I'm just saying.
Oh, that is very good. That's very good.
Of course, I bring it back to Mass Effect. I always do.
Sure, why not?
Always. Love it. You're doing really good today, MJ.
Thank you. I'm crushing it. I had caffeine before this.
I'm just proud of you. Like my dad, drink caffeine at fucking 9 p.m. Weirdo.
I never claimed to be a functional adult, Adrian.
No.
Overrated.
Yeah. We're all just large children.
That's true.
On that note, Josiah, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with MJ and I today.
Absolutely.
It was an absolute pleasure, as always. And for anyone who contributes to our Patreon at $10 or more a month, there will be an exclusive reading by Josiah from the Hexologists, so go check that out. And Josiah, I know you're an online enigma, but where can folks find you? And where can they pick up?
I am briefly on Instagram until I don't have to be anymore, and that's at Bancroft Josiah, because Josiah Bancroft was taken, of course.
Damn it.
And I have a Patreon that I don't know what the address is. Josiah Bancroft something other. Yeah. And the Patreon, I will say, that's where I do all my stuff. There's no minimum contribution. $1, you get it all. I don't really care. I want like some sort of wall between me and the world because I'm scared of it.
Relatable and understandable.
Beautiful. All right. Well, you can also follow SFF Addicts on Instagram, X, Twitter, whatever it's called, Threads at sffaddictspod. You can follow me at Adrian M. Gibson. MJ, what about you?
I am internally too online. You can find me literally everywhere. My cat walks on my computer. Say hi to Thorin.
Oh, what a cutie.
He is very cute and troublesome. Oh my God, he typed M dashes. He is his mother's son.
Nice. Wow. Did he type no?
Good taste.
Anyways, sorry. You can find me across all the social medias, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, wherever the hell. At MJ Kuhn Books. All one word. Or mjkuhn.com. I got all the links there.
And all the M dashes are in among
all the M dashes. I do have too many. My last draft, my agent told me I needed to cut at least 33% of my M dashes.
Whatever, man.
I did it.
Sad. All right. Well, R.I.P. to all those M dashes. And that's it for this episode. Stay tuned next week for part 2 with Josiah, for our mini masterclass on writing mysteries. Now keep reading, keep imagining, and we'll see you next time on SFF Addicts.